You wake in the dark, and your body has turned against you. A tooth deep in your jaw has gone rotten, and the side of your face is swollen hot and tight. An abscess, the kind that killed people for most of human history. It's 50,000 years ago. No pharmacy, no dentist, no pill. Today, that tooth is a 20-minute errand. Back then, it could end you. So what did people do when they got sick? With no hospitals, no antibiotics, and no one who could promise a cure, the answer starts stranger than you'd expect. Let's go back into that cave. In 1957, an archaeologist named Ralph Selecki was digging in Shanidar Cave in the mountains of what's now Iraqi Kurdistan when he uncovered a Neanderthal skeleton. They called him Shanidar I, and his bones told a brutal story. A crushing blow to the left side of his skull had likely blinded him in one eye. His right arm was withered and useless, wasted away above the elbow. He limped. Bony growths in both ear canals mean he was probably deaf. By every rule of Ice Age survival, a man like that should have died fast. He couldn't hunt, he couldn't run, he couldn't hear a predator coming. He lived to somewhere between 35 and 50 years old. And every one of those injuries had healed. That's the part that stops you. Healing takes time, months, years, and it takes food you didn't catch and protection you couldn't provide for yourself. In 2017, Eric Trinkhaus and Sebastian Villot confirmed the hearing loss and spelled out what it meant. Someone fed this man. Someone guarded him. For years, roughly 45,000 years before the word healthcare existed, a group of so-called brutes kept a broken man alive. So that's care. But could they actually treat anything? Go to another cave, El Cedrón in northern Spain, and another Neanderthal, a young male with a jaw wrecked by a dental abscess. In 2017, a team led by Laura Wyrick at the University of Adelaide published something remarkable in the journal Nature. They had scraped the hardened plaque off his roughly 48,000-year-old teeth and sequenced the DNA trapped inside. Everyone assumes painkillers and antibiotics are modern inventions. Aspirin, 1897. Penicillin, 1928. The truth was sitting in this Neanderthal's teeth. He had been chewing poplar, a tree bark that contains salicylic acid, the exact active ingredient in aspirin, and his plaque held traces of penicillium, the mold that gives us penicillin. Picture it, a sick young man in agony from an abscessed tooth, reaching for the one thing that dulled the pain and the mold that fought the infection. He was self-medicating with aspirin and penicillin around 40,000 years before either was discovered. Nobody handed him a textbook. Somebody, at some point, watched, remembered, and passed it down. But medicine wasn't only plants and mold. Sometimes it was written on the skin. In 1991, hikers in the Ötztal Alps, on the border between Austria and Italy, found a body melting out of the ice. Everyone assumed it was a lost mountaineer. It was a man who had died about 5,300 years ago, now known as Ötzi, the best preserved human being from the ancient world. His skin carried 61 tattoos, not pictures, not symbols, simple lines and crosses. And here's the twist. They weren't decoration. When researchers mapped them, the marks clustered almost exactly over his worn, arthritic joints and his lower back, inked into the body precisely where it hurt. And Ötzi came prepared. Tucked into his gear were lumps of birch polypore fungus, a mushroom with antibacterial and antiparasitic properties. His gut, meanwhile, was infested with whipworm, a parasite that causes cramping and diarrhea. He was carrying, in other words, the specific remedy for the specific bug living inside him. A 5,300-year-old man walked the Alps with a first aid kit and what may be the oldest known pain map on Earth. So, long-term care, plant drugs, a fungus aimed at a worm. Surely surgery was a bridge too far. It wasn't. For thousands of years, across the ancient world, humans drilled and scraped holes into living skulls, a procedure called trepanation, most likely to relieve pressure after head wounds. It sounds like a death sentence. No anesthesia, no sterile room. A hole opened in the head with stone and copper. Now the twist. In 2018, a team including John Verano of Tulane University studied more than 800 trepan skulls from Peru. You can tell whether a patient survived because bone heals. Smooth, regrown edges mean they lived. In the earliest skulls, around 400 BC, only about 40% made it. But by the height of the Inca, survival had climbed to between 75 and 83%. In the best period, as high as 91%. Now hold that against this. During the American Civil War, more than 2,000 years later, skull surgery killed between 46 and 56% of patients. Doctors with steel instruments and medical degrees were losing half the people on the table. Stone Age surgeons in the Andes were saving 4 out of 5. So line it up. Care that lasted years. Painkillers pulled from bark. A fungus aimed at a worm. Brain surgery that beat 19th century hospitals. It's tempting to be impressed by the tools. The herbs, the mold, the flint blade. But look again at the man in Shanidar Cave. No plant healed him. No surgery saved him. What kept a blind, half-crippled, deaf man alive into old age wasn't a remedy at all. It was a decision, made over and over, every single day, by other people, that he was worth feeding, worth guarding, worth keeping. The medicine was the bark and the mold. The thing underneath the medicine, the thing that made any of it matter, was other people refusing to let you face it alone. Go back to that cave. You, in the dark, jaw swollen, fever climbing. For most of human history, that moment came with something we've quietly lost. You were never alone in it. Someone sat with you. Someone chewed the bark, tended the fire, guarded the entrance while you shook. Now the tooth is a 20-minute errand. We can fix almost anything. Faster, cleaner, better than any healer who ever lived. But we tend to recover the way we scroll. Alone, in a bright room, waiting for a text back. We beat the infection. We're still figuring out the loneliness. The first medicine was never a plant or a blade. It was somebody deciding you were worth staying for. You wake in the dark, 50,000 years ago, with a rotten tooth and a rising fever. And no pharmacy, no dentist, no pill anywhere on Earth. For almost all of human history, getting sick meant facing it with nothing but bark, fire, and the people beside you. So how did anyone survive? This is the strange and surprisingly advanced story of what ancient humans actually did when they got sick, and what their answer reveals about how we heal today.